Hello and welcome to yet another episode in History Time. The whole city is being dug up for Metrorail. Metrorail is already operational in one phase and the second phase will become ready in a few years. Some time ago there was talk about Monorail and people were talking about it as though it was the eighth wonder of the world. Will you believe me if I tell you that 120 years ago there was a monorail service in Chennai, our own Madras? That is the story of this episode. Let us see what happened to that monorail. The railways came to Chennai or to South India in the 1850s, and thereafter the railway network began to grow. As it grew and railway services began to connect town and town, the big question was, how do you transport cargo and goods from the villages to the connecting railway junctions? That was still being done by bullock carts. And bullock carts were slow, and they were also very limited in what load they could carry. The focus therefore shifted on feeder railway services that would connect to the main railway junctions. And it was at this time that the monorail was debated upon as a suitable alternative. In the 1890s, Charles Ewing, who was an engineer in Madras city, patented a design for monorail. And this was accepted across the world. It was considered to be a fairly unique design. It involved one single railway track on which a carriage could roll with wheels in the middle of the carriage. Now, such a vehicle would have no sense of balance. And in order to provide the balance, there was a balancing wheel on one side of the carriage, which was several times the diameter of the wheel which was rotating under the carriage itself. And in front, an animal could be yoked. Several carriages could be linked one behind the other on that one single railway track. And as a consequence, 6 to 7 tons of load could be pulled by one pair of bullocks, something that would require 16 to 18 bullocks otherwise to perform the same activity. The monorail was displayed in an international exhibition conducted in London in 1900, where Parry and Company put up a stall and displayed Ewing's design. The world was impressed. But back in Madras, Tatikonda Nambermal Chetty, the builder baron, decided that he was going to make it a practical experiment. Nambermal Chetty was the master builder and master contractor of that time in this city. Practically every historic edifice that we see today, particularly the red-colored government buildings, were all constructed by him. You just name it: the High Court, the Victoria Public Hall, the Metropolitan Magistrates Court in Georgetown, the Victoria Hostel in Tiruvallikeeni, and then the State Bank building in First Line Beach. These were all some of his constructions. And he needed the monorail service more than anybody else, because he had to transport his bricks, his tiles, his iron bars, and just about everything else from one location to the other. And he thought the monorail was a fantastic system. Tatikonda Nambermal Chetty therefore obtained permission from the government to run a monorail between the Punamalli toll coast and the Avadi junction. And soon work began on the laying of a railway track over there. At the same time, Nambermal Chetty also began wondering on whether he ought not to create a passenger service using the same monorail system. In 1902-1903, a number of Tamil magazines began to give details of the route. And what is astounding is that the same routes are being planned even today for the Metrorail service. What would you say if I told you that one route was from St. Thomas's Mount to Tiruvallikeeni, the ice house? The other route was all the way from Punamalli to the harbour. There was a third route that was connecting Stanley Medical Hospital, or what would eventually become Stanley Medical Hospital, to NSC Bose Road. And like this, the network was planned, and it was decided that much of the city would be covered by a monorail service. The idea was that these monorails would be pulled by engines, and the public could use it for their transport. The idea caught the public imagination, and work was almost going to start when in 1905, the electric trams came to Madras. Even earlier, Madras had trams drawn by horses. But in 1905, the arrival of the electric tramway completely changed public perception. The monorail lost favor, and Nambermal eventually closed his idea of a monorail. Today, we have not even a single photograph of the monorail system as it functioned in a limited area in various parts of the city. But far away in the north, in the princely state of Patiala, the Maharaja had heard about Ewing's design and decided to implement a light rail service in his state. Patiala Light Railway ran from 1905 to 1927, and then it closed. Nobody knew what happened to its wagons and its engine. But several years later, they were discovered in a godown. They were then refurbished, and today they are available for the public to see in the National Railway Museum in Delhi. If you ever have a chance to go there, you should see it, and that will give you an idea as to what the Madras monorail was all about. Interestingly, when the tramways came to Madras, they adopted the same routes that Nambermal Chetty had already planned out. And those were the lines along which the tramways ran till they closed eventually in the 1950s. What is even more surprising is that practically the same routes are now being planned for the Metrorail as well. Some things never change, don't they? But then technology keeps changing. And from monorail, we made it to trams. From trams, we made it to the suburban railway. From the suburban railway, we've now gone on to Metrorail. It is left to be seen as to how public transport will ease with the arrival of the Metrorail. I'm sure it will, and let us look forward to it. Bye for now.